The email confirmation for the luxury honeymoon suite hit my shared inbox like a punch to the gut. It wasn't tucked away in a dusty glove compartment or hidden in a forgotten drawer. It was glaringly digital, framed by the mundane comfort of our kitchen counter at precisely 7:13 a.m. on a Tuesday. Mark and Jessica, honeymoon bliss package Fiji. The subject line itself was a cold, clinical blade. Fiji, the word shimmered, mocking me. We had talked about Fiji for our 10th anniversary, a vague, hopeful dream we'd sketched out over cheap wine on a quiet Tuesday night just months ago. Next year, I'd said, when things settle down. Mark had smiled, that easy, confident smile, and squeezed my hand. Fiji it is, then. Now, here was Fiji, booked, confirmed, and tied to the name Jessica. My 10th anniversary was next year. This reservation was for this spring. My name is Sarah, and for 10 years, I thought my life was built on a solid foundation of shared laughter, quiet companionship, and the chaotic, overwhelming love for our daughter, Emily. I was the woman who packed lunches with encouraging notes tucked inside, who cheered loudest at swim meets, who believed, with every fiber of her being, in the man she married. But in that sickening moment, staring at the glowing screen that reflected my suddenly distorted face, I realized my life wasn't solid ground at all. It was a stage, meticulously built, where Mark performed the role of loving husband and father while planning his exit, his future, his honeymoon with someone else. Emily, all sunshine and missing front teeth, skipped into the kitchen, backpack bouncing against her small back. The clatter of her sneakers on the tile, the scent of her strawberry shampoo, were anchors in the sudden storm. "Mom, can we get froyo after school? You promised." My breath hitched, a sharp, painful intake of air. How could I navigate froyo after school when my entire world had just tilted on its axis, threatening to send us all tumbling into the abyss? Just a second, sweetie," I managed, my voice sounding thin, reedy, alien in my own ears. My fingers trembled slightly as I minimized the email, shoving the evidence into the digital equivalent of a dark drawer. I blinked rapidly, trying to clear the fog of disbelief, the swirling images of Mark on a beach in Fiji with Jessica. Honeymoon, not just a fleeting mistake, an impulsive affair. This was planned. This was a whole other life, mapped out to the point of booking the damn honeymoon suite. How long had this been happening? How deep did this betrayal go? Emily tugged at my sleeve, her brow furrowing slightly. "Mom, you okay? You look weird." I forced a smile, a paper-thin, brittle thing I prayed she wouldn't see through. The muscles in my face felt stiff, unused to the deception. "Yep, just got a weird email for work. Everything's fine, bug." The lie tasted like ash, like bile. "Of course we can get froyo. You were awesome at your swim lesson today, remember? Kicked so strong." She beamed, her brow clearing as the promise of sprinkles and sugary yogurt pushed back the fleeting concern. "Yeah, coach said I'm a fish." I watched her, my heart aching, a raw, exposed nerve. My bright, funny, trusting Emily, who still believed in superheroes, in the absolute goodness of her dad, in happy endings. How do you tell a child their dad is a stranger? That the man they adore has been living a lie? You don't. Not yet. Not like this. You swallow the truth, bury it deep, and smile about froyo. Later that day, while Emily was at a friend's house, the carefully constructed dam of my composure broke. The tears came first, hot and stinging, blurring the familiar lines of the kitchen. Then came the cold, hard anger, solidifying in my gut. I knew I had to dig. It felt dirty, invasive, a violation of the trust I thought we shared. But the need to understand, to see the full scope of the deception, was overwhelming. I accessed our shared bank accounts online. Nothing immediately screamed secret life in the main checking account. But then I remembered the credit card statements that came directly to his office, the ones he always dismissed as just easier for business expenses. He travels so much, it made sense, I'd told myself. How naive I'd been. Logging into those credit card accounts felt like stepping into a stranger's life. The pattern was clear, horrifying in its deliberate secrecy. Expensive jewelry purchases from high-end boutiques that never made it into my jewelry box. Weekend trips booked under different names, not his usual business contacts. And then the recurring charges. For a storage unit downtown, then eventually for a P.O. box linked to that unit. A storage unit? For what? Old business files? Or a place to stash evidence of a life he wanted to keep hidden? My best friend, Chloe, texted later that afternoon. Wine night Friday, need to download. Rough week. I stared at the message, her usual cheerful energy a stark contrast to the gray landscape of my reality. Fingers hovered over the keys. Chloe knew everything about me, or at least, she thought she did. We'd been through everything together since college bad dates, job interviews, my wedding, Emily's birth. Could I tell her? Could I unleash this tidal wave of betrayal, this soul-crushing truth, on her too? Not yet. Not until I had a clearer picture, a strategy that wasn't just fueled by raw pain and blind rage. Def, can't wait. Been a crazy week. Like, really crazy. Another lie, punctuated for effect. They were becoming frighteningly easy to produce. The house felt different that night. Every photo on the wall, our wedding, Emily's first steps, family vacations seemed to mock me with its false narrative. Every piece of furniture we'd picked out together, every paint color we'd debated, felt like a prop in a play I hadn't known I was performing in. Mark came home, cheerful, oblivious, humming some tune from the radio. "Hey," he said, dropping his briefcase by the door. "Rough day." "Long," I managed, my voice tight. "Emily's already asleep." "Ah, okay." He leaned in to kiss my cheek, his familiar scent of sandalwood and a hint of the office air chilling me. I flinched almost imperceptibly, pulling back as if to push a stray hair from my face. "Got some prep for that big presentation tomorrow," he continued, oblivious. "Gonna hit the office early to go over the final slides." He smiled, that easy, confident smile that had charmed me 10 years ago, that had made me believe in our forever. Now it just looked like another part of the performance, a mask he wore seamlessly. Later, while he was ostensibly working in his home office, I delved deeper into the online world. Jessica Ryan. Social media made the invasion of privacy terrifyingly simple. A professional profile on LinkedIn, sharp, successful, associate partner. Undeniably attractive, with a framed law degree proudly displayed in her office photo. Then a personal one on Instagram, filtered sunsets, vibrant cityscapes, photos with friends laughing over cocktails, recent posts about exciting new beginnings in the city. No mention of Mark, not directly, but a picture of her apartment balcony, filled with thriving plants and fairy lights, looked suspiciously like the building listed as the billing address for some of those storage unit charges. The puzzle pieces were starting to fit, forming a picture of a life he'd built parallel to mine, a life he intended to step into. My brother, David, a tech wizard who worked from home and knew how to find anything online short of the president's nuclear codes, was my next call. I kept my voice deliberately casual, a strained tightness around the edges that I hoped he wouldn't notice. "Hey, Dave, you got a minute?" "Hey, sis, always, what's up? Need me to hack the school board for Emily's report card?" He chuckled, his usual cheerful energy a welcome sound. "No, nothing like that." I took a deep breath. "Listen, I need your help with something kind of sensitive. I'm looking into some unusual charges on one of our accounts, and I think there might be some fraud involved. Could you maybe look into some of these addresses and transactions for me? See if anything pops up." He immediately sobered. "Fraud? You mean like credit card fraud?" "Maybe," I hedged. "Or something else. I'm not sure. It's just weird." I gave him the details for the storage unit and the P.O. box, the dates of the recurring transfers. "Okay," he said, his voice turning serious. "Send me the details. I'll see what I can find." "You sure you're okay, Sarah?" "Yeah, just stressed about this," I lied. "Thanks, Dave. You're the best." Just hearing his familiar, steady voice was a small comfort in the rapidly darkening landscape of my life. A few days later, David called back, his usual cheerful tone replaced with a quiet seriousness that sent a chill down my spine. "Hey, Sarah, I looked into that stuff you sent me, and it's not just weird. These payments for the storage unit and the P.O. box. There are also connections to some online accounts, untraceable cash transfers. It's complicated, and honestly, it looks like he's deliberately shielding assets, moving money around, like he's planning to disappear, or at least make it look like he doesn't have anything." Shielding assets. The cold, calculating legal term landed like a rock in my gut, sinking down to join the knot of betrayal. This wasn't just about another woman. It was about disappearing money, about a deliberate, calculated financial separation, a plan to leave me and Emily with nothing. That's when the anger solidified into a cold, unwavering purpose. The pain was still there, a constant ache beneath my ribs, but it was no longer paralyzing. This wasn't just about my broken heart anymore. It was about protecting Emily, about ensuring she wasn't left adrift, financially vulnerable, when his carefully constructed world inevitably imploded. He wanted a clean break. He wouldn't get one, not without everyone knowing exactly what he was. I knew, with a certainty that was both terrifying and empowering, that I needed to meet Jessica. Not to scream or cry or demand answers, but to see her face to face, to understand who she was and how deeply she was entangled in his web. I found the cafe near her office building from her social media posts, a trendy spot with outdoor seating and too expensive coffee. I dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that spoke of quiet confidence, of a woman who wasn't falling apart, even though every cell in my body felt like it was vibrating with suppressed panic. I sat by the window, nursing a lukewarm latte, the bitter taste a fitting accompaniment to my mood, watching the stream of polished professionals. Then I saw her. She was laughing, bright and easy, her head thrown back slightly, talking with a colleague. My stomach clenched, a visceral reaction, but I held my ground. When her colleague left, heading towards the street, I seized my chance. I stood up, smoothing my skirt, affecting a casual air I was far from feeling. I walked over to her table, Jessica Ryan. She turned, her smile polite, expectant. Her eyes, a clear blue, held a warmth that seemed at odds with the cold reality I knew she was involved in. "Yes. Can I help you? I think we need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I expected, a quiet firmness I hadn't known I possessed. "It's about Mark." Her smile faltered, a subtle shift in her expression. A flicker of caution, perhaps, or just the polite curiosity fading. I'm sorry, do I know you?" "My name is Sarah," I said, stepping closer, lowering my voice slightly so only she could hear. The air felt suddenly charged, thick with unspoken truths. "I'm Mark's wife." The color drained from her face with startling speed. The polite composure she'd worn moments before shattered instantly, revealing a raw, vulnerable shock. Her eyes widened, searching my face as if trying to decipher a foreign language. His what? "His wife," I repeated softly, deliberately, letting the word hang in the air between us, heavy with the weight of 10 years. For 10 years. We have a daughter. Her name is Emily. She's 8. She stumbled back slightly, grasping for the back of a nearby chair, her fingers clenching around the wood. Her breath hitched. No, that's not possible. She shook her head, as if trying to dislodge the impossible information. He told me he was divorced, that his ex-wife was completely out of the picture, that it was messy but over. His unstable ex, I guessed, the bitter taste back in my mouth. Couldn't let go, interfering. She looked at me, eyes wide with shock and a dawning, horrifying understanding. Yes, he said she was difficult. That contact was minimal. That Emily, was better off not being caught in the middle. Minimal contact. I felt a cold rage building beneath the surface, a simmering volcano threatening to erupt. Minimal contact. He tucks our daughter into bed almost every single night. He helps her with her math homework. He spent weeks building her a treehouse in the backyard last summer. The details tumbled out, undeniable proof of the life he lived with us, the life he'd denied to her. Tears welled in her clear blue eyes, spilling down her cheeks, her perfect composure dissolving. I swear, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, I didn't know. He showed me papers, divorce documents, made it seem official, said the house was tied up in the settlement. That's why he wasn't living there anymore. That's why he needed the storage unit for his things. I believed her. In that moment, looking at her genuine distress, at the raw pain in her eyes, I knew she wasn't a villain. She was another victim of his elaborate, cruel lies. She had been manipulated just as expertly as I had. He's very good, I said, my voice quiet, almost weary, at making people believe exactly what he wants them to. What are you going to do? She whispered, wiping at her tears with the back of her hand. I took a deep breath, the rage still a low burn, but tempered now by a sense of shared injury, of unexpected solidarity. He's having a celebration party in a few weeks, I said, the idea solidifying into concrete plan in that very moment. For his big deal at work. A lot of people will be there. His colleagues, his investors. A perfect stage for the truth. I think you should be there too, Jessica. She stared at me, bewildered, the remnants of her shock warring with nascent anger. A party? Are you serious? Dead serious, I said, meeting her gaze. He built this life, both these lives, on a foundation of lies. It's time for everyone to see the foundation crack. It's time for the truth to come out. We talked for a long time there in the cafe, two strangers united by the same man's profound deceit. She shared details about the life he'd built with her, the future plans, the promises, the way he'd woven a narrative of a difficult past he was trying to escape. She mentioned the small, antique locket he'd given her recently, claiming it was a cherished family heirloom he wanted her to have. My blood ran cold. My grandmother's locket, given to me on my wedding day. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of taking that particular item, so steeped in the history of my family, my marriage, and giving it to his mistress, his intended next wife, made my stomach turn. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a desecration. Leaving the cafe, the city noise seemed muffled, distant. My phone buzzed in my hand. Mark, running late at the office. Big prep for tomorrow, might be really late tonight. The message felt like a relic from a different era, a time before I knew the man who sent it was a stranger. I didn't reply. The pit in my stomach remained, but it was no longer just fear and pain. There was a new feeling there, a quiet, simmering power. The next few weeks were a blur of clandestine planning, fueled by adrenaline and a shared sense of purpose with Jessica. I finally called Chloe, the words tumbling out in a rush, the email, the storage unit, Jessica, the locket. She was a whirlwind of righteous fury and practical support, instantly shifting into crisis management mode. Okay, deep breaths, Sarah. We are going to figure this out. What do you need? I need to expose him, Chloe. To everyone. I told her about the party idea, and Jessica's going to be there. Chloe was silent for a moment, processing. Okay, bold, I like it. Let's make this happen. We'll need invites, food, drinks, and maybe a projector. A plan began to take shape, logistics mapped out with the intensity of a military operation. Meanwhile, David kept digging into the financial mess. The initial signs of shielding assets had led him down a rabbit hole of shell companies, offshore accounts, and complex transactions. Sarah, he called one evening, his voice grim, this is way bigger than just hiding money for a divorce. I think he's been embezzling from his company. For years. That big deal he keeps talking about, I think it's a front. A way to move a massive amount of money and disappear. A cold dread, different from the personal betrayal, settled over me. This wasn't just about our marriage anymore. It was about criminal activity, potentially ruining countless people. We finalized the guest list for the celebration party. It wasn't just friends and family. It included people from Mark's company, potential investors who thought they were partnering on a legitimate venture, colleagues who saw him as a success story. The guest list was a precise assembly of the world he had so carefully curated and compartmentalized. Jessica confirmed her attendance, her initial shock hardening into a quiet, steely resolve. She wanted to expose his lies, to reclaim her own dignity, as much as I did. The tension in the house was palpable. Mark, busy with his prep, seemed increasingly stressed, barking into the phone, coming home later than ever. He sensed something was off, but he couldn't pinpoint it. Good, let him sweat. The night of the party arrived. Our house, usually a place of comfort and chaos, felt like a stage set for a drama I hadn't written the opening scene for. I put on a dress I knew Mark loved, a quiet act of defiance, reclaiming my own image. Emily was at David's house for a sleepover, a necessary shield from the coming storm. My stomach churned with a mixture of nerves, fear, and a grim, unshakable determination. Mark was in his element, working the room, his smile wide and confident, his hand on the back of colleagues he was about to betray. He was a man on top of his carefully constructed world, completely unaware the ground beneath him was about to collapse. Jessica arrived precisely on time, elegant and poised in a simple black dress, a quiet storm in the corner of the room. Mark hadn't seen her yet, too busy basking in the glow of his perceived success. She caught my eye across the crowded room, a silent acknowledgement, a shared breath. Chloe squeezed my arm, her presence a silent anchor. Ready. I nodded, a small, sharp breath escaping my lips. It was time. I tapped a champagne flute with a spoon, the delicate sound echoing surprisingly loudly in the sudden silence. Conversations faded. Heads turned. Mark turned, beaming, expecting me to introduce him for his big moment, his big speech. Thank you all for coming tonight, I began, my voice clear and steady despite the frantic pounding of my heart. We're here to celebrate Mark's success, and perhaps shed a little light on a few other things. A ripple of polite, unsure laughter spread through the crowd. You know, planning this party made me think a lot about stories. I continued, letting my gaze sweep across the room, finally landing on Mark, his smile frozen on his face. The stories we tell ourselves and the stories others tell us. Mark, I paused, a beat of silence, is a master storyteller. He can make you believe anything. His smile completely vanished, replaced by a flicker of unease, then outright suspicion in his eyes. He told me he loved me, I said, my voice gaining strength, resonating through the quiet room, promised me forever. Built this beautiful life with me. I gestured around the room at the house. The people gathered. But he was also telling another story, a different one. I looked towards Jessica, who stood tall and still by the window. A story about being divorced, about a new beginning, complete with plans for a honeymoon in Fiji. Loud gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers erupted. Mark's face went from pale to ashen, his eyes darting nervously. "Sarah, what are you doing? This is crazy." "Telling the truth, Mark," I said, my voice ringing out, sharp and clear. "Something you seem to have forgotten how to do." I held up my phone, connecting it to the projector I'd discreetly set up earlier, supposedly for a nostalgic photo montage. On the screen, the Fiji confirmation email filled the wall, large and undeniable. And it wasn't just about love, was it? I continued, swiping to the next slide. Credit card statements, highlighting trips he didn't take with me, the storage unit charges, the P.O. box. It was about money, about hiding it, shielding assets in secret accounts and untraceable transfers. On screen, details from David's investigation appeared: account numbers, dates, amounts. "This is insane," Mark sputtered, his voice rising in desperation, looking around at the stunned faces. "She's unstable. I told you, she's been like this since the divorce." "Unstable?" Jessica stepped forward, her voice calm, but laced with the cold fire of betrayal. She held up the small, antique locket. "He told me she was his unstable ex-wife who couldn't let go. He told me their daughter was better off with limited contact. He even gave me this locket." She held it up for everyone to see, a small, shining piece of damning evidence, claiming it was a cherished family heirloom he wanted me to have. "The same locket." She turned her gaze directly to Mark, her eyes piercing. "He gave his wife, Sarah, on their wedding day." The silence that followed was absolute, deafening, broken only by the murmur of horrified whispers and the soft click of wine glasses being set down. Mark was trapped, exposed. His two meticulously separated worlds collided in a spectacular, public implosion. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. Then, another voice, small but clear, cut through the tension. "Dad, is that true?" Emily stood in the hallway entrance, having apparently convinced David to bring her back earlier than planned. Mark froze, his desperate attempts at deflection dissolving completely before his daughter's innocent, questioning gaze. "Emily, princess," he choked out, reaching a trembling hand towards her. "Did you lie to Mom?" Her voice trembled slightly, but her eyes, so like his, were steady, searching. About that other lady. And about us, the mighty Mark, the master of explanations, the charming deceiver, stood speechless before his daughter's simple, devastating question. He looked from Emily to me, to Jessica, to the stunned, disgusted faces in the crowd. His shoulders slumped, the performance finally over. "Yes," he whispered, barely audible, the single word echoing in the charged silence. "Yes, I lied." Emily's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. Then, "I don't like you anymore." The brutal honesty of childhood. She turned and ran to me, burying her face in my legs, her small body trembling. The party was over. The performance had reached its shattering climax, and the audience was horrified, disgusted, and utterly silent. As I held Emily, my arms a shield against the wreckage he had created, I saw Mark standing alone in the center of the room, his perfect world in ruins around him. We left that night, not going back to the house of lies, but to Chloe's apartment, a haven of real friendship and messy comfort. The morning after was quiet, heavy with exhaustion and the lingering taste of shattered dreams. My phone was flooded with messages, desperate pleas from Mark, shocked inquiries from bewildered guests, even a few from some of his colleagues. I didn't open them. Then David called. "Hey, Sarah. Just wanted to let you know, based on everything I found and the information I passed to a contact at the feds, yeah, the FBI is involved now. Turns out Mark's big deal wasn't just a cover for moving money for a divorce. It was actually a sophisticated, multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme. He was planning to disappear, not just leave. That party? Half those people there were unknowingly involved or directly impacted by his fraud." A weary, almost hysterical laugh escaped me. So my little truth bomb had unintended, far-reaching, explosive consequences. Later that morning, a text from Jessica. "Just so you know, he came by my place last night after everyone left. Said it was all a big misunderstanding. Tried to charm his way back in." She sent a photo she'd managed to snap discreetly from her balcony mark, looking rumpled and desperate, outside her building, getting into a car. And he wasn't alone. There was someone else in the passenger seat, a woman. "Guess we weren't special enough to warrant exclusive lying rights," Jessica's text finished. His deceit was pathological, a relentless, unending performance. But somehow, seeing that photo, that final piece of proof of his ingrained dishonesty, didn't ignite rage. It just extinguished the last ember of anything I might have still felt for the man I thought he was. He wasn't worth the emotional energy. Chloe came into the kitchen, holding 2 steaming mugs. "You know," she said, sitting down opposite me, her expression thoughtful, "my company, they're looking for new stories. Powerful stories. Inspiring ones. Stories about rebuilding, about finding your voice." "My story?" I asked, pulling Emily onto my lap, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. "Yeah," she smiled gently. "How a woman found out her life was a lie, had the guts to blow it up, and started over. How she found allies in unexpected places. How she protected her daughter. It's a hell of a narrative, Sarah. A lot of people could connect with that." She pulled out a business card, sliding it across the counter. "My editor is already interested, based on what I've told her. If you're interested." The card felt heavy in my hand, weighted with possibility, with power. A chance to take control of my narrative, to build something new, something real from the ashes. Emily stirred in my arms, her eyes fluttering open. "Mommy." "Yeah, bug. Can we still get froyo today?" I hugged her tight, breathing in her familiar, sweet scent, the smell of childhood and unwavering love. "Absolutely, sweetheart," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "We absolutely can." The future was uncertain, messy, and nothing like the perfect picture Mark had tried to paint. But it was mine. And standing there in Chloe's kitchen, with Emily in my arms and the promise of a new beginning in my hand, that felt like the most powerful truth of all.